Guys, these Sigma lenses are really incredible, and I want to talk about it today. Hello tribe, welcome back to the channel. My name is Forrest Proctor. You're watching the Epic Creative YouTube channel, and it's where we talk everything cameras, video business, photography, etc. If you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me because we're about to cross over 1,000 subscribers, and I would love for you to come on this journey with me. But today we're going to talk about the Sigma art lenses and why they are just my favorite lenses in the entire world. To give you just a little bit of background and overview of Sigma, they are a third-party lens manufacturer that are sort of meant to compete with the L series lenses that Canon produces. Now, I don't own the whole line of Sigma art lenses. I only own two, so I'm just going to speak on those today, but a lot of the things I talk about do cross over into the other lenses that they offer. And I also know several other creators who own the other versions of these lenses or other focal lengths and whatnot, and they are also just blown away by them. The first art lens that I ever got, and sort of by accident, is the 50mm 1.4 Sigma art lens, which does have autofocus. Now, the way I got this lens was back when I first started out. I wanted something that was going to give me a cinematic look, and I think when I typed that in Google, this was the first lens that came up, and it was around $800 at the time, and so I bought it. I didn't really know much about Aperture or anything like that. I was really getting started, so even though I bought this lens accidentally, it has been my main lens for almost 10 years. In fact, if you've watched some videos that I've made in the past, I've talked about, my wedding style and how people are always asking me, what lenses I'm shooting on. 95% of my weddings over the course of 10 years have been shot solely on this lens, the Sigma 50mm 1.4. What I really love about this for weddings especially is it's a focal length that isn't too wide, but it's also not too tight. So you don't have to get super close to people, but if you back up far enough, you can get some of the environment. Apart from that, it being a 1.4, you're gonna get a really shallow depth of field, which gives you that cinematic look, right? Which is an overly used term, we know, but also you're gonna get really good low light performance. It lets in a ton of light, so it's almost like having night vision, even if you're not using, say, a Sony camera, which is even better for low light. Even on my Canon cameras, I get really good performance out of this in low light situations. And guys, this is a full frame lens, so it pretty much covers all sensors out there. It's an EF mount, so it mounts to EF, but I do have RF to EF adapter when using things like my R6 Mark II or my R, which we're filming with now. And yeah, it's just a really great lens. I love this lens. It's been through it. I've actually rebuilt it myself because there was some rattling a couple years back, and I just looked up how to take it apart, and I found that there were some loose screws that connected some of the elements, and I just tightened those screws back, and it's been awesome ever since. The other Sigma art lens that I own is probably the most popular in the family. It is the 18-35, and it is a 1.8 APS-C coverage lens, so it's not like the 50mm that covers full frame. It is for Super 35 or APS-C sensors, and this one is super popular in the world of videography and photography as well, because it is a zoom lens. It goes from 18mm to 35mm, but it still has that super fast and constant aperture of 1.8. I have used this on so many projects, including some award-winning documentaries that I have made and some national commercial spots, which I'm actually really proud of, because on some of these spots, I'm going to show them on screen now, you wouldn't think that this national ad was shot with this little $700 lens, but it's so versatile, and it allowed us in those situations to not have to take lenses on and off. It's almost like you have two primes in one, right? And I normally would only shoot at either 18, 24, or 35. Nothing really on the in-betweens, and I would just reframe with my feet per se, move back and forth. But yeah, this is just an incredible lens, and I think it's really good for having two primes in one, and also for documentaries where you don't have to switch lenses all the time. You can just switch focal lengths. So in truth, I feel like I really have 4 Sigma art lenses, because I have the 18, then you can move this to 24, then you can move this to 35, and then I have the 50. So by owning these two lenses, effectively, I do feel like I'm getting 4 lenses, right? And if you add the price together, you're under $1,500 for these two lenses, which is just incredible. Now, I did mention some of the benefits when I was telling you about the glass that I own, but I just want to reiterate some of those really quickly. The price is obviously the main thing. Both of these lenses come in under $1,000, and in a lot of cases, you can find both of them for under $600. I think I got the original 50mm that I bought for around $750, and then I found the 18 to 35mm used at Gulf Coast Camera in Pensacola, and when I found it on their website, it was $500 flat. So I drove straight there, hour-and-a-half drive to get the lens, and I definitely don't regret it. So the price is the first thing, which is just a steal. And if you compare its counterparts in the Canon range, you're going to be paying $1,500 to $2,500 per lens, depending on if you go with an older EF-L series lens or if you go with their new RF lenses, which are even more expensive. The next big benefit is if you're looking for that cinematic look and you really want to hone in on your images and blur out that background, have that creamy cinematic image, you cannot go wrong with these lenses because they just offer such a fast aperture. And if now and again you do need more in focus or you do need a little sharper image, you can up the aperture a little bit. I have actually found that these lenses are tic-tac sharp. I've used them for weddings, commercials, documentaries, and just a ton of other videos, and they always come in clutch. These 90% of all the videos you see on my channel or in my portfolio are using those lenses right there. Every now and again when you see something that's shot with a really long telephoto, I'll be using the Canon 70-200 up there, but I have some friends that have that version in the Sigma Art and they absolutely love it, and they saved about $1,000 when they bought it. The next thing I want to talk about is the build quality. These lenses are built like tanks. They are basically a full metal body, full metal jacket body with just a little bit of plastic on there, and then the rubber rings for the focus and the focal length on these 18 to 35 are just built really well. And even on my 50mm that has a little bit of age on it, and you can actually see that, and I've shot with it at the beach a lot, so I think that's where like that salty white stuff is coming from. It has held up really well, so the build quality is A+. Now I want to address some rumors behind the manufacturing of this lens that I'm not quite sure are true, but I'm going to share them anyway because people have told me this, whether it be on some YouTube videos I watched or when I was at NAB talking to different people. I've always asked about this conspiracy, and there seems to be a lot of truth to it. So Sigma makes a more expensive version of these lenses, which is their Cine lenses, and a lot of people say that the elements inside of both sets of lenses are exactly the same. The only difference is one of them is made for primarily photographers, which are these, and then the other ones are made for cinema, and they offer some unique features like the focus gear rings and less focus breathing and things like that, and also just a uniform size so that when you're putting on matte boxes and changing lenses in a cinema setting, you're not disrupting the weight or the size of your rig, which makes a lot of sense. But if you're a hybrid shooter like me and a running gun filmmaker in a company of one, it makes sense to save $1,200 and get these because you can use them for photography. They have autofocus, and we're not so concerned about having big rigs to where when we change it, it's going to slow us down that much. And like I said, when you shoot with the 18 to 35, you're essentially getting 3 lenses in one. So I think that's interesting that they use the same elements. You're basically getting the same image. You're just not getting those tactile, if you will, qualities that the Cinema line offers. So my final thoughts on these lenses is I just absolutely love them. I have a couple L series lenses, and the benefit of those, I guess, is the weather seal and maybe a better communication between camera and lens, because if you're using Canon, then it might communicate just a little bit faster and a little bit better. But personally, I don't use autofocus that much, and nowadays for my weddings and commercials and even documentaries, I'm mostly shooting on my Fujifilm X-H2S, and so I haven't found any any problems with the autofocus there. But again, I'm not the autofocus guy. I use manual focus 99% of the time, so it really doesn't bother me at all. And so I think these lenses are just really good for really anybody, not just somebody who's on a budget, but somebody who wants a very good cinematic image. And there's just a little bit of character put into these lenses, even though they're technically sharp. I counter that by using my matte box and a mist filter by Newer, and the power is like 1/8, so it's not like super bloomy, but it does soften the image a little bit. That's how I add a little character back into the lens. But yeah, I think these lenses are great for really anybody, and it does help if you can save about $2,000 for the equivalent of say 1 or 2 Canon L series lenses. You could have 3 or 4 of these lenses. And like I said, if you have the 18 to 35, I view it as 3 lenses in one. Okay guys, that's basically all I have to say about the 2 Sigma Art lenses that I own. I love the way they look on my camera. I'm the biggest Sigma Art fanboy that you're gonna find. If you found any value in this video or you like this content, this is the kind of stuff that I talk about all the time, so please do like and subscribe. We also have a new podcast called the Epic Creative Podcast. You can find the link to that in the description, and we basically marry creativity and revenue, and we just talk about how you can take your passion for being a creative videographer or photographer and turn it into a business and have a sustainable life. And it's just a lot of fun. So we've got some really big guests coming up, so make sure you go check out that podcast. Without further ado, I will see you in the next video. Peace.